there's so much that we could discuss that are topics that I hear so much on this channel. You know, how to get paid.
Yeah.
You know, it's one that is very typical for us. How to deal with problematic clients. Another one that's typical. But one thing that struck me this week was the episode you just posted about expertise and faking it till you make it.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a very interesting thing, because I would say that Butch and I both entirely
failed up.
Or, as I was going to say, faked it till we made
Right.
it. But yeah, we failed up.
Yeah.
Which was, I thought, an interesting starting point to discuss when you're a designer, whatever your discipline is, and you're trying to break into the business, and you're trying to establish credibility and credentials, and you don't have any. I think you kind of have to fake it till you make it, which I want to distinguish that from, I don't believe that means lying.
Yeah.
Which we both know people that do that or have done that, have said, oh, I designed that. And maybe they got away with it just long enough to leverage that into a career, but more often than not, they get caught. And then they actually do incredible career damage, right?
I think most well-intentioned people understand that expression, fake it till you make it. But there's a very strong negative word in there, the word fake, and that implies fraud, lying, deception, things like that. But I think it's more of a mindset. So I think this sentiment, this other phrase, is very similar to it, but it doesn't have the same baggage as fake it till you make it. And that is believe it till you achieve it. And that's really the heart of it, right? Is that everybody starts out as an amateur. Even if you go through professional training, you're an amateur mechanic, you're an amateur doctor, because you don't have the years of experience under your belt. And in order for us to get there, we have to start somewhere. And to start, you must believe that it is possible. I really do feel this way. It's like your body will not do something until your mind commits to doing it. If there's a gap and you think you can't jump it, when you jump, you will fall. And if you believe you can do it, you have a shot at it. I'm not saying that it's guaranteed you're going to jump the gap, but at least now it's possible. Rodney Mullen, in his TED Talk, and he's a world famous skateboarder known for insane tricks, he gets on and he talks about like how he worked for weeks falling, mastering this one trick. And as soon as he posted the video of him doing it, he says within days or weeks, other people were doing an impossible trick. It is just because it was now demonstrated that this is possible. And the same thing with the 4-minute mile with Roger Barrister, right? Where he was able to run the mile in under 4 minutes, and everybody said that was not possible. And then that same year, a number of people broke the 4-minute mile barrier as well. So those are the kinds of things. So really what we're talking about is you got to believe it if you want to achieve it.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Okay.
You know, when I feel like I made my career in the early stages by just sheer force of will,
Yeah.
grit, and a belief that it could be done, like believing it until I achieved it. I didn't fake it. I believe that what I was designing was, you know, I think we could discuss all day the merits of what I was designing, but I was designing things with intention, consciously, and in the beginning maybe for free, which is another excellent, interesting topic that gets a lot of heat around here. The idea of doing gigs for the potential that will come from it.
Which makes it no different than looking at a small company and investing. It's just, where do you draw the line on that? When have you had enough of doing it for free?
Yeah.
But there's many times where I've gotten involved with something way below any kind of rate for one of two reasons. One is it was fascinating and I really wanted to be a part of it, which is a personal choice, so that's not a sacrifice. Or as something to build my business when I was younger.
Mm-hmm. I guess the tricky part is you can always make that argument that I'm fascinated by this project and I do need this for my portfolio. What kind of guidance can we provide to the larger community who might be tuning into this, who's either young in life or young in their career, where every project turns into that? Because I know people who've won multiple awards at the highest level who still feel like, oh, if I say no, that's an opportunity that is not going to happen. So they're winding up doing work for below market rates as what I would consider an icon in their respective field. So at some point, that kind of thinking starts to work against you. And I think as creative people, we endeavor to do new, interesting, novel things. We like people. We like to please people. And if you've done 35 ads for a video game and the 36th person comes, well, I didn't do that game in that subgenre just yet, or not with that publisher. So therefore, yeah, let's go for it. And this is what I think happens, and we start to compete against ourselves and others in our space to like, well, if I don't, then Johnny or Mary will, and there goes our business. And it's a really fast path towards this downward spiral. Do you have any guidance on how you've been able to make those decisions over the years, like against my best interest? Like, I want to do this project, but I can't because they don't respect me, not enough time, not enough creativity, or not enough money, or all of those things put together.
To me, the greatest sign of maturity as an artist is the ability to walk away from a canvas that isn't serving you.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, and it's taken me my whole life to get to this point where I can actually say no and not be worried that I'll never work again.
Yeah.
Or be flipping through Instagram and see all the shows my friends are doing and just like, oh, career over. This is just the worst. I'm never going to work again. You know, the clouds roll in. I'm all Eeyore. It's terrible.
Yeah.
But the truth is, it's believe it till you achieve it. I love that. I'm going to have that engraved on me. Because that's living in an artistic life. That's all you have is belief in yourself. And there's a value to that.
Yeah.
There really is.
So you're saying it's taken you all your life to get to this point, to realize the power of your artistry and to say no. May I ask how long you've been doing this?
Over 30 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
so some people just fell out of their chairs right now because they're like, I'm 4 years into this.
Yeah.
You're saying it's going to take me 26 years more.
I'm not saying it's going to take you 26 more
We're
years.
here to hopefully help you not
to help you realize
To shorten
make
that
the same
path.
mistake we
don't
made.
waste that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have value. Your work has value. Your time. And I mean, it's funny. You can talk about jobs, and you can talk about everything on this planet. The one thing, the only asset on this planet you only get once is time.
Yeah.
So value that above everything.
So let's say you're able to travel back in time, Bob and Butch, and you could talk to your younger self, person who is just about to enter into the creative field. What are 3 things that you could either ask yourself or tell yourself that you would actually listen to? Because remember back then how rebellious you were, how anti-establishment you were, and how full of hope and ideas and I know best, spit and vinegar and ready to fight everybody and everything. So please keep that in mind, because that is essentially who's tuning in today to say, look at these, you know, old washed up dudes and Melinda.
And we are.
Oh my goodness!
And why should I listen to them? They're all like old crotchety and cobwebs all everywhere. And why should I? They're just not with it, man. Whatever they're gonna say. So just remember how you were at like 18, 19, or wherever you started in your career and in your life. What could you say to yourself? What kind of questions would you ask? Because if we can cut through and save one young kid out there, 5 people, from having to take this long, arduous journey into selling themselves short, not believing in themselves, giving up their time and not valuing it, we would have done somebody a good service. So this is your Good Samaritan act for today, if not
Fantastic.
the 4th one you've done today, but yes. What would you say?
Believe that you're enough.
Okay.
Believe it, that you're enough, that you're here, you're in this moment. We only have this moment. Like, the past is just a memory. The future is pure science fiction. So what are you doing right now? So believe that you're enough. You're here. You're having the discussion about the gig, you know, or you're having the thoughts about the gig that you want to go after. So believe first that you're enough to do it. Absolutely. Second, I would say lean into connecting to people, talking to people, people who are your heroes, people who are your mentors, people who you find fascinating, people that you want to work with. Like, don't hold back. Bring all of you to that. Bring every beautiful, stinky, weird, strange quirk and facet of you to that, and just be 100% you, because that's the other commodity. There's one of you. There really is. There might be thousands of designers, but there's only one of you designing with all of your causes and conditions, all of your circumstances, all of the strange alchemy that has led to the things you think about. That's like a rare commodity. That's a supply side of one. So lean into that too. And then the third thing I would say, which goes to your question of like, you know, when to turn it down versus when to not, is when you're young and you're starting, I think do everything. Do everything. Any opportunity that comes up, practice, get in reps. Design for free, design for a little money, design for a lot of money, whatever. Practice. You know, as a designer, I refer to my practice. That's what it is. It's not my company. Like, mode is a practice. We practice design. So begin practicing. Then I'll say this about that. As your career progresses, you should be incrementally building your ability to say no. By the time you're at the place where you're full of cobwebs and washed up like Butch and I are,
And myself.
and Christo, you should probably be saying no to almost everything, because now you're down to that time factor, you know. And I'm not trying to be morbid, but in my career, I'm in the last third of my career. Let's be generous and say third, all right? So
The fall semester of your
So
life.
Butch-
Or fall
Butch-
season.
The fall.
Butch
Not
has
quite the
said
winter.
that
Autumn leaves.
our byline now is, and I'll do the non-bleepable version. I won't do the beeple version of this. I'll say, if the answer isn't heck yeah, then the answer is no. For us at this point in our career. But if you're a year in, you're just out of school, maybe you're just thinking about doing it, the most important thing is to do it again and again. Seth Godin says, if you want to make great things, make things great over and over and over and over. And I believe that.
Fantastic. Is there something that you'd like to add to this, Butch?
Oh, bleep, yeah.
We're going to keep this one kid-friendly.
Yeah, this
Absolutely.
is
I like
a little more practical. It's easier to speak two languages than it is to keep your mouth shut in one. Super important. And that really goes back to listening. And it's the hardest skill when talking to a group of creatives, is to not let your predisposition color what you're trying to achieve. And that's, if I could, going back to your question, if I could go back to when I wasn't so cobweb covered, I would have been a better listener. What other things are there? I don't think saying no is the skill you need to learn. The skill you need to learn is where you're a good fit. What are the projects that not only artistically excite you, but push your best skills further? I would say quite a few times in my career, I jumped into projects that were outside of my skill set, and at the time I wasn't smart enough to surround myself with people who could make up for those deficiencies. So the other part of that is, every once in a while you need to put your hand up and get some help. And that's not a sign of failure or anything. That's a sign of intelligence, to know enough to, hey, I need my mob. I need some people here. And then the last one always is jealousy is absolutely, hands down, the thing that will drive you into the ground. By looking at work other people are doing and man, I wish I could have done that, or this thing or that thing. Appreciate other work. Learn from other work. You'll have more, you'll do more. But, go get it. I mean, where we came from, we're talking a long time ago working in clubs in the 70s and 80s, working for bar bands, loading the trucks, driving the trucks, doing all the designing, and coming from the ground up, which is some super old fart people things to say. But we know everything about our business, from the back of the truck to the front of the house. We can look at it and do it. So if you love what you do, learn everything about what you do.
Fantastic.
You're so much smarter than I am.
Melinda, if there's anything you want to say, just feel free to interject. It's just a casual conversation.
Well, I didn't want to interrupt the wisdom that was being brought, but there were a couple of
Was
things.
that too deep?
No, it was fantastic.
Okay.
But there were a couple of things that I was visualizing as you both were speaking, especially about the say yes to everything in the beginning, and as your career goes on, less and less you'll be saying yes to, more you'll be saying no to. So I'm just visualizing this almost like a triangle, that when it starts out, you're just taking everything. And then as you progress in your career, it flips. And then the no's are increasing and the yeses are just becoming so few. And it's like you're focusing, you're finding your way, you're focusing on what you're really good at, figuring out what you're not good at, what you don't like. And you're just shedding that skin and just focusing in on what you do. So it was just a lot of visuals coming to mind as you were talking. And the other thing that you had mentioned, Butch, was about asking for help, because I did not ask for help at the beginning of my career, and I'm 12, 13 years in, and the more I progress in my career now, the more help that I need and the more help that I'm seeing that I need. But I only see that now as I'm 13 years in, but gosh, how I wish that I would have asked for help when I first started or just got my first job, and how much farther I could have been if I would just do that.
And how much more fun you would have had.
Oh, yeah.
Because the whole thing is,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what you do. Over the course of your life, the thing that'll kill you is stress. Reduce your stress, you're a better creator. It's about freedom in your mind. Whoa. But it's true,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The journey is way more fun than the destination.
The journey is everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And I know when I was young, I wouldn't ask for help because I thought that's a sign of weakness. Like, oh, now that my client's going to think I don't know what to do. The client loves to hear me say, and now what I encounter is I say, the client will ask me a question, I'll go, gosh, I'm really not sure. I've got some real experts I know who I think can help us, though. That's the ultimate self-endorsement. When you can be, you were talking earlier with the other peeps about vulnerability. When you could be vulnerable with a client in that way, when you could say, I have absolutely no idea, but I know that there are people who do, let's go find them together. The honesty, that's our other, bam. Like, the truth will set you free.
The truth will set you free, baby. It's so true. And you are, at some point in everything you do, you will find yourself in the weeds. Started off, everybody, we're all rowing the same direction. This is awesome. And at some point, things kind of come off the tracks a little bit in every project. Nothing is ever super smooth. And it's about looking around for your support, your self-confidence, and believe it till you achieve it. I love that. That's one of the best things I've heard in a long time.
We'll just have to put that on the titles card.
Oh, it was painted across the front of the building.
Yeah. Okay. Melinda, while we're going deeper into this session, you and I will have to think about something that we can fist bump on. So the whole time they're doing that, I'm like, let's figure out what our thing is.
We do.
Right.
We do.
We did not
Really
that was really, there's
in the moment.
There's no truth without pain. So little let yourself know you're alive moment.
Well, you had mentioned fail up earlier, and there's no truth without pain. So can you share maybe some failures or some lessons that you've learned, or I want to know the good stuff?
Sure. It's I don't need to get into specific things, but what I can say is I've definitely had things go wrong at a massive level. We did a show in Madison Square Garden with an artist, and it had these giant scenic elements that moved at the beginning of the show that were made out of bungee cords. It was a really fabulous looking thing. And we're at the Garden, and it's a really big deal. You know, you're in New York. First moment of the show, 2 out of the 3 things moved, and 1 just stayed down. And there's no rescue on a 20,000-pound set piece that decides today's the day I'm not going to cooperate. So it's in that moment where being proactive rather than reactive will not only save your sanity, but lead you to the moment to solve the challenge by not flipping out. Because your first go-to is, here we go, we're all gonna die. And it took some time to learn that, to just be, Another one, there's this thing when something goes wrong on stage, you'll see somebody go running across the stage, sort of crouch down, the roadie crouch. And early in my career, I went to go running at something once. And one of the other guys on the team grabbed me. And he goes, don't do that. I'm like, but. He goes, hey, you ever been to a fire? I'm like, yeah. He goes, do firemen run to the fire? Or do they stand back for a second and try to see what's burning? Oh, Ted Leamy, thank you for that. I've lived with that for a really long time. Another great piece of advice, another show I did, we had made you know what an elephant stand is?
No.
Okay. It's the little, back in the days when there were circuses, it's the little round stand that the elephant would put his legs up on,
sure.
Stand up, elephant stand.
Okay.
Well, we had designed this elephant stand 15 or 20 times and had built them maybe 15 or 20 times. And the director was still really unhappy. And I had flown into a bit of a rage at him. And he, when I finally calmed down a little bit, he said, Butch, people really don't pay us for our great ideas. They pay us for our solutions. And I was like, oh, yeah, fair. That's another giant part of it. Is we're there to solve people's problems for them. Can't get them all.
I don't understand that.
Why don't you understand that?
You said you had gone through many iterations of building the elephant stand, and then on the last build, the director said he didn't like it?
Continually didn't like it. And this was something that was drawn, rendered, modeled, time after time after time. And it was turning into something that wasn't a budget crusher was turning into a budget crusher. And, I was losing my temper.
Oh, and that's what he told you. It doesn't really matter how hard you work on it. It's like the results that matter.
It's the results that matter. And at the end of the day, it does. So it's one of those things where proactive rather than reactive in the moment is going to really make you a happier person. And which in turn makes you a better creator.
And you're not going to hit it out of the park every time. In fact, you're not going to hit it out of the park most of the time. It's like playing any other bell curve in life. You're kind of going to range around the middle a lot of the time, and sometimes you're going to fail miserably, and sometimes you're going to crush it. And so you have to take that joy of crushing it for what it is. It's momentary, it's fleeting. You shouldn't expect that that's how it is all the time. And neither should you take that crushing, the other kind of crushing, that defeat, as status quo, because that's just something that happens. I've been fired any number of times at this point. And I was talking to a student of mine the other day, and she had just gotten fired, and she was in tears, and she was super upset. I was like, oh, it's excellent. You've checked that box. It's out of the way. You got fired. That's going to happen. It'll probably happen again. Maybe you'll get lucky and it wouldn't. But what you need to know is that most of the time, all you can do is try to be the best you can be in the moment that you're in. and deliver what that moment demands with integrity and with honesty. And if that honesty means that you have to cop to, oh, I screwed that up, then that's what you do. And then you be proactive and saying, I have ideas about how we can fix that.
Or sometimes, the first time you get fired from something, it's the worst thing ever. You will survive it. And after that, you're kind of like, oh, yeah, well, it didn't work out. But generally, the reason we're being, if you're ever separated from a project, if you've done all your due diligence as far as doing your job, all the things you're supposed to do, it's just one of those things, It's a creative endeavor, and sometimes it's just not the right fit. So you can't let road bumps derail you. You really do need to just keep going. I have a friend who's an actor. He did 2,000 auditions, over 2,000, before he got a role. He's a really working actor now, But it's like anything. It takes time. Not going to right out of T-ball. You're not playing in the World Series.
That's good to hear. I mean, I'm thinking back. I mean, even hearing it today for myself, I need that. I need to hear that we're not going to hit it out of the park with every swing, and the failures that happen. That's not setting a precedent for the future of, hey, this is how things are always going to be, and nor does the mediocre stuff that we do either. There's this pressure a lot of times for creatives to hit it out of the park we put on ourselves, and it has to be that. And if it's not, then they might as well just give up.
You should always strive for the highest quality in your work. You're only as good as the last thing you've done, as far as being a business person. As far as being an artist, we live in a world that's incredibly subjective as far as our choices. So every time you present something, you can't be responsible for who's on the other side of the table. You can only be responsible for what you've done. And as long as you're true to yourself and you have followed the mission of the project, it's humans, and we all have judged things differently, and sometimes stuff working out. I've had things that haven't worked out that have freed me up to pick up things that came in the back door that elevated my career. So the thing is, take your day, lick your wounds, and then get up tomorrow, get back at it, pick up your notepad, draw your kitchen.
And that subjectivity, that's an interesting thing, because I've designed some things and I'm like, I don't know about that. And the client's been like, this is everything that I have ever wanted. And I think now about that and about my own disconnect from that kind of phenomenon. I have to think, well, I probably wasn't listening to them too closely, and I inadvertently gave them what they wanted, and I had different beliefs about what it had to be good. That's something I've learned from Butch over our 10 plus years of working together, is like that subjectivity, because I think there's a big difference between design and art. I think an artist makes things for them. And if they find an audience that resonates with that, boom. I think designers create things for others. And so what you have to try to do as a designer is the best you can is use your filters, use your talents, use your eye and your background and the context you've gathered, but then use it as a filter to channel what you've been asked to make for that person. And it's that subjectivity is really interesting, and I've had projects where I've walked away and been like, well, I wasn't so happy with what happened, but the client was really happy, and so I guess I knocked it out of the park.
You're not doing it for you.
Right.
Switching gears for a second, because I think what's special about After Hours is our ability to speak candidly,
Yeah.
to be vulnerable, to reveal ourselves. And you had sent me a message maybe a couple days ago on some topics. I want to make sure we talk about that before we both run out of time here.
Sure.
Let's bring up one of those things, because it's a rare opportunity for me to sit in front of people and talk about stuff and get your input and get your point of view. But let's bring up a topic that we don't talk about often enough on this channel, because I feel like we're dancing around a lot of things we've talked about, said differently, but let's go right there. So can you bring up one of those things that you had said, hey, what if we talk about these 2 or 3 things? Do you remember what they are? If not, I could look up on my cell phone.
We might need to look it up. I know that
Okay.
you and I have been talking a lot about the shift to coaching,
Yes?
you know, and we've been talking about that threshold. I'm a generous giver of knowledge. Like I try to be. This is an intention I have, which is, you know, people come to me and they say, I'm having a difficulty, I'm having a problem, I've encountered a thing. And I readily give the most valuable advice I have about that. And now I'm in an interesting phase because I'm doing more, I'm being asked professionally now to do consulting or to do coaching. And more than that, I'm also very interested in it, you know, because I feel a calling to do it. And I'm like, well, how do I make this a living now? How do I turn this, you know, and I feel a great deal of affinity for you, Chris, because we both have had big post-production companies that were very successful in their own merits, but we've both discovered this thing, which is about increasing education and helping people and figuring out, can I make a living doing that? And it's like I'm right back to the designers we're talking about who are just starting out. I'm like, well, how do I, like this, and this is a struggle I'm having. Like there are people that I've been giving consistent coaching to, and I'm like, how do I tell them, I'd like you to pay me for this now, you know? And we were also, I think, talking about speaking stuff and commoditizing that too. And
Okay, let's talk about that,
okay,
because this is very fresh in my mind, and I'm sure it is with you as well. And then Butch and Melinda jump in, because I think maybe we're in similar arcs here. I'm not sure. I now endeavor to be paid to speak because it's a self-worth issue, that if I just give it away, then what am I worth? Maybe it's worth nothing. But as I coach people and I say, you should set your price, now I'm not going to set my price. Seems hypocritical. So I put it out on the internet a while ago that I'd love to come and speak, because people were asking me these kind of questions all the time. So I wrote a little post and said, look, here's what it's going to take. If you want me to come and speak on topics that I feel passionate about, I'm happy to do that. But you got to fly me business class, put me up on a hotel, and you got to pay me $10,000. And I said, you know, as I'm getting busier and busier with public speaking, I have to raise the rate. What I'm finding is that people who organize talks for creative people also run it like a creative business. They don't charge enough. They don't figure out what's valuable to their audience.
you're going to get great exposure.
Yeah. Well, they just say like, I'm not doing this to make money. Well, now your mission is now my condition or problem. It's like, and I'm struggling with this, and it's a source of friction internally and externally, because I would love to just teach for free everywhere all the time. I really would, and that's my true passion. But I also have to support a team of people here and build something that's much bigger than what it is, than just me wanting to fulfill this need to teach. At the same token, it's like on a personal level, I get to some disagreements in terms of like, are you just saying yes to everybody that asks? Like, no, there's a process, and it's like, it's not clear to me what the process is. And so how do we go about this? Literally this morning, I was speaking to a conference organizer in Germany, and he was talking to me. He's like, Chris, we only have this dollar amount, and we can only take care of this. And I don't want to seem like it's just about the money, but at some point there must be some kind of minimum threshold. And we talked about this off air right before we got on, like, what's the minimum that somebody has to come to you before you can even take the conversation seriously? Not on a human level, but on a business level. And so you were saying like 5 to 50K for what you think you bring to the table. So how do we get there? And what's the conflict like? And is this something that we should be talking about even? So I'd love to like share and
yes,
open.
100% we should be talking about this. One of my favorite Reddits is Choosing Beggars.
Choosing Beggars?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's about people just trying to talk people down on pricing. And
I got to check that out.
It's amazing. It's crazy. It's all these text exchanges. Anyway, your life experience, your knowledge, and your ability to actually get up in front of people and speak in a way that they can take away something, I don't see any difference to that than dropping 50 G's on going to Cal Arts. This is a educational experience. Our life experiences, as happy as I am to share them with my colleagues, in an organized setting, it completely, unquestioningly has value. Now, our value as individuals to look at these particular things, whether we want to do them or not, you set your price and you play the game. You know, there's no, I bet we could look on the internet for speakers' fees and see that you can come out of political office and become 100 millionaire really fast talking. So, 10 G's seems reasonable.
I think so.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Eminently, yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, to a lot of people in the arts, 10 grand's a budget for an entire thing.
Right.
And probably sometimes twice a budget.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, congratulations that you do have a budget to work on something. That's cool.
Yeah.
Our time has value. Our experience has value. And it's something to toe a line on. I've made a lot of... Bob and I were just talking about this at lunch, about how we did a lot of shows for a long time well under our rate, just to work. And it was a horrible mistake. The product didn't turn out the way we wanted. We certainly didn't feel great about it at the end. And then, to be honest with you, your 10 grand, well, I don't know your tax rate or anything, but right off the bat, let's take half of it and give it to the government. So now your 10 is 5. Now, in your 5, there's your clothes, your laptop, your phone. I know, and you're fly, man. You probably got like 80 cents left out of 10 grand the way you look.
I owe 2.
But I'll do. But when you're sitting down and thinking about value, it's just not straight up. 10 grand isn't a lot of money anymore. It doesn't go far. And so to go to Germany, there's a travel day. There's a day there. There's a travel day home. At least on the minimum, that's 3 days. So let's look at your time at $3,333 a day for international travel to be a draw to their conference that they're charging for.
Which you would be.
Rockstar. Yeah. So, doesn't seem ridiculous, and if people can't float the boat, they can't float the boat.
Let's stay here for a second.
No Bucks, no Buck Rogers.
Bam.
Just Rogers?
Just Rogers. You get the Rogers, but no Buck.
Yeah. There's something that you mentioned there, which is to kind of put it in the context of creatives who listen to this and like, we're going to talk about getting 10 or 50 G or whatever it is to go and do public speaking. And they're sitting there looking at a $500 logo. Mm-hmm. I literally was reading a comment on one of our YouTube channel or one of our YouTube videos about charging money for logo. And they said, anybody that's charging $18,000 for logo is criminal, and how hard is it to design a logo? And there's this attitude within the creative people, and they compare. It's like, how hard is it for Butch or Bob to step on stage and deliver a 40-minute talk that's about their experiences, their knowledge, and their wisdom? They compare effort, what seems like effort in their mind, and they bristle at this idea that we as creative individuals want to even get paid to be on stage. And I do want to say something here. I'm not speaking for anybody else here. I'm just speaking for myself. I put a lot of time, energy, and effort into working on my talks, from the slides to the design to the message and takeaways. I don't sit there and try to sell you a book or a course at the end of it. I don't tell you my life story because if it's not relevant to the point I'm trying to make. I'm not showing you my portfolio. I'm not doing anything except for to try to distill down as much knowledge as I can in those 40 minutes for you to do this. And I take great professional pride in doing this. I know there are other speakers who go on stage because it's an honor for them to be there. For them, that's their moment. They arrive and they do exactly that. It's a show and tell. Here's my portfolio. Here's how I did it. And what value you get from it from an audience is a different thing. And so now we're going to lump everybody together. It's like, I'm not paying them. Why should I pay you? And there's this whole bit. And I recently put it out on the internet, on Twitter, and people came out of the woodwork like, oh my God, this guy's so full of himself that he wants to get paid to speak. And who are you? And it just got really dark. But it's kind of interesting for me. I look at it not like, whoa, but more like, huh, that's the sentiment for some people. Not for a lot of people, but for some, that for Bob, myself, or for you, Butch, or Melinda, to get paid to speak, it feels wrong. Like something in their gut tells them like, this is not right.
That's the story they're telling themselves about themselves. That's what that is. You know, and that's what when I think, you know, I've only recently got enough visibility on platforms like YouTube or Facebook or whatever, where I've like, I got all excited when I started getting trolls. I'm like, oh,
You made it.
This is a marker of
Yeah,
success.
it is.
People are trolling me now. This is great. But I find that when I read those comments carefully, like, who are you? I think that's somebody telling themselves, well, who am I? That guy can get 10 grand, 15 grand, 50 grand to speak. I can't do that. Why should he?
Right.
You read those things I wrote?
You've got to use your fake
Captain
account.
Fancy Pants 001.
Donkey Boy 1212. Yeah, I'm all those.
It's an interesting thing that you're in this position, that this is your speaking at this moment, and teaching is your craft, and it's what you take pride in. And it's a very similar feeling, possibly, to someone who's working on their craft of design. And so it's like you're feeling, even though it's speaking, like you're feeling what they feel, and they're like, who's that person to charge that amount of money? Or I can't charge that for my logo. And it's the same, I would think that there's a comparison there, that, or they can't find a client to pay that much, or
It's your life experience to that point is what frames your judgment. Mm-hmm. You know, if your $500 commission is fist bumping around the room and that's your thing, awesome. Big things ahead. Don't limit yourself with that. And don't use your life experience to limit all the rest of us. Because every single person who scores a 10 grand speaking fee is opening up the market for more people to speak.
and showing that it's possible.
And also that being compared to someone who's just showing their portfolio and telling you how they used Illustrator, I'm not paying for that. I just turn on YouTube and see that. When I go to listen to people speak, I need to learn.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the point. And if for some reason you've paid to go see the speaker, you should definitely want the value of, you know, someone who's a professional.
Or anything. You know, I think that's an interesting phenomenon, that people anthropomorphize the marketplace. Like the logo value equals your value. And why would you be worth that? The reality is the logo is worth as much as the market will bear. And that's mathematical systems. It's like physics and tidal forces and fluid dynamics. I don't understand economics, but I know that it's true, that it is at play, that it's like physics. And I know that I've seen logos sold, logos that you would look at and go, because they're so simple, right? The swoosh, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever. But, and I'm not talking about the swoosh, because Nike actually didn't pay a lot for the swoosh. But there are other logos that are as simple that big brands have paid 5, 6 figures to get to that logo. Guess what? The market will bear that price. The market will also bear the price that you can get paid on Fiverr. What part of the market do you want to work in? Do you want to sell Yugos or do you want to sell Bentleys? You can decide. You know, that's something that happened with us at Mode. Colleen, who runs the business and who is the president and the owner and who negotiates all the deals, she told all of us, like about 4 years ago, she said, I'm going to double all the prices this year. And we ran around screaming, like, it's never going to happen. No one's going to pay us that. And then they did.
And we never worked again. It all ended darkly.
Money. It's such a hard thing. It's just impossible to talk about.
Bends people's brains.
It bends people's brains. It's hard to keep it in your pocket. And it's the most impossible subject. It's just crazy. I'm terrible. Like, I can't get together 5 receipts and hang on to them. I'm a hot mess. But I know my value. And I've been fortunate that from the time I started, because when I started, I made $15 a day, and I lived in the band house. And this wasn't in 1940. And it was not much of a leap in time to go from that 15 a day to what I thought was shocking, to do
150 a day.
To 1,500 a day, or more.
To 15,000 a day.
So we have done that.
Yeah.
So it all kind of circles around to the power of being able to say no.
Yeah.
And know your value, and don't underprice you. Don't undercut your clients.
Yeah. Where it gets complicated is when I do a project for a client, I see that as commerce and transaction. I really do. At the end of the day, there's some relationship involved, but really, you pay me, I do this, I hope you're happy, and we continue to do business if I continue to deliver. That's fine. When it comes to something that's bigger than transactional, like when you want to be out there to help people, to share your knowledge, to save them some of that pain, the 30 years of pain and suffering, it's like, let me just shave 5 off for you if I can, 10 if I'm really hitting it, right? And so it's against our nature. It's like, I want to help Melinda. I want to help you. I want to help people who are watching this channel, but I have to, at the end of the day, to be able to sustain a life and support an enterprise that I'm trying to build here. So I think your and my conflict are very similar, if I understood your original message, which is we want to teach, we want to help, and sometimes we let others take advantage of us because of that desire to want to help and to teach. So maybe we can lock into that. Like, in your mind, what are you thinking about when somebody reaches out and says to you, Bob, we'd like to have you come and speak? And eventually the topic of money is going to enter. It's like, we're running this on a shoestring budget. It's a personal project of mine, and we try not to charge too much money for attendees. And they're all priming you at this moment now to say that we're going to give you very little, if anything. So if they offer you hotel and flight, is that enough for you? Or how hard do you fight back and say, really, I want to do this, but here's my fee? And talk me through what you're thinking about. And maybe we can find some common ground there and figure this problem out together.
I don't know that there's any validity in what I'm doing at the moment, but what I've decided is my line in the sand is that I'm going to ask for at least as much as the most I've been paid to speak, which at this point is $7,500 to go give a keynote. That's I feel like my current price, like the latest best price I've gotten, should be my base price. Because if you listen to the way that you Socratically work a sales conversation, what you just said, what if the knowledge that I could give you could save you 5 years of struggle, 10 years of struggle? What is the difference for you between 5 years of you haven't heard the tips, tricks, and experience I have to give you, and so you have 5 additional years of grossing 40 a year or 50 a year? But what if it is? How might it change things if the piece of knowledge I give you, or the several pieces of knowledge I give you, allows you to start having $100,000 years? So now those 5 years, you've made an additional $250,000. Are you willing to pay $1,000 to see me, to get that knowledge? If you knew that, would you? And I have discomfort in the same way that I'll say that in a design conversation with a client. I have a difficult time saying it around the value of what I'm personally going to bring to a speaking or a teaching gig. And I also feel a little bit of that thing I talked about early on, where I'm like, I reckon I'm in the beginning of the curve of doing this, which is ridiculous because I taught an MFA program at Cal Arts and I've been teaching for 15 years, but I have been struggling with a mindset that, well, I'm at the beginning of this, the speaking, the coaching, the teaching. So I should just do every gig offered to build credits and credibility. And then I can start saying no. But I think really I'm not at the beginning and I need to start saying no, you know, and that the conference, the sort of hypothetical thing you mentioned where they call, we're running it on a shoestring, we'd love to have you, you know, the people there would really like what you have to say, but you know, we're trying to give back, that this is not a profit-making operation. You know, maybe I'm going to say something along the lines of, and this is probably wrong, right? Like, because I'm negotiating with myself. But I'm going to say, how about if I simulcast it? Like, I'll show up via a Zoom room and give it, or you know, or I don't know, or I say no. You know, I say, I so appreciate what you're doing. And unfortunately, the constraints on my time right now are such that I can't take engagements that aren't paying my fee because I have a business around this and an operation and an enterprise that is around sharing this valuable knowledge. And I wish you really well with what you're doing. And in fact, I think it's amazing and heroic that you're trying to give it away. And I have plenty that you can get me for free on YouTube, just like you can get you for free on YouTube. Everything at the Futur, if you choose to dig through every video, you can find everything that's in your paid products. You can probably find everything that you would get from the $10,000 spend a day with Chris Do that's on your website. You know, you can do that if you want to spend the hundreds of hours to comb through and record it all and distill it and sort it out. So if you want what I have to give for free, go check me out on social media. You know, go check out the things I've written. That's available to you, and I welcome you to it. But if you want me to come and interact and answer questions and share on the spot in the moment in that special consensual space that is people live together, like thinking about something, that's a premium activity for me. Like, it demands a lot of me. It demands my personal presence, you know, and it demands that I bring everything I have in the moment. That's a high value moment.
So are you saying no a lot then?
No, I'm not. Like, you know, I just.
Well, no. Actually, yes, no.
You know, I just spoke at a big convention in Anaheim.
Which one did you speak at?
NAMM. You know, and I did multiple speaking. So
What does NAMM stand for?
National Association of
Music Merchandisers.
Merchandisers.
Okay.
Yeah. So
120,000 people in Anaheim. Crazy.
yeah, huge. Whole convention halls full of people playing the drums. And then another whole convention hall full of people playing the guitar, and a whole other convention hall of people playing tubas. You know, it was that big a thing, you know. But I appeared on a couple of panels, I gave a little keynote, and I did some podcasts. And I basically did all of that for flights and hotel. You know, and for me, that was a calculation. It was exposure to a different marketplace. You know, most of my speaking has been very much in design-oriented conferences. This was a bigger platform for me. And so I thought, you know, it was a calculation. Was it the right calculation? I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure what the dividends are from that yet. Did I get any further exposure? Not quite sure. I got some practice. I got to put some reps in. But I don't need reps to like, from a process standpoint. I can get in front of cameras and be on a microphone or in front of a room full of people, and I know I can deliver value. So it's interesting to reflect back on myself. Why am I doing those reps for free at this point?
I think NAMM is a little bit of a different situation because you have prior relationships with the people who are trying to build something out there. It's what Bob was involved with is a new part of this giant convention. And I think there's some good ground floor work for everybody involved.
Butch also spoke. He did his thing.
Yeah.
Also for flight and hotel.
I live in Pasadena, so, you know, basically half a dozen Krispy Kremes and a firm handshake.
You're even cheaper than the people who are traveling from out of
Yeah,
town.
have you ever had a Krispy Kreme? It doesn't seem cheap to me. What price inspiration? I went and saw someone who's now a friend of mine, an artist by the name of Ann Militello, give a talk on the history of lighting. And I paid to go to that thing. And it was awesome. I walked out of there, with the exception of the historical things I weren't aware of, stoked about going back to work. You just can't, you know, a good speaker, it's so much more than just the do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that. It's a whole thing to take that key in your brain and switch you to a different gear that you'd never thought of before. And
Especially for creatives.
yeah, it's, you know, once again, there's no value. You can't put a number on that, on inspiration. So to be able to be in front of people and inspire them, I'll tell you, that has value, because people have spoken in front of me and inspired me, and I have walked away knowing that that was totally worth it, because I was ready to get after it again. It's something. Now, at what point, so you guys have these careers, speaking, great. There is a line, though, where it's yeah, this is an important place to talk. This is an important subject. I'm interested in this. I'll go and do it. The beauty of that being, it's on your terms and your choice. Does all that make sense? I'm babbling.
I look at other organizations and conferences. Obviously, if you're a political person, it's like $100,000 to speak, $200,000, depending on who you are. And then I look at professional conferences, like for marketers or for tech or whatever. They pay their speakers too, $30,000, $50,000, whatever.
Yeah.
So why is it when it comes to design conferences, and it seems limited to design conferences where you attract a lot of creative people, that there is no money? And I think about the event organizers who are most likely also creative people themselves, having never learned about business, wanting to please people. They've created an institution around what it is that they, their own values and belief systems. And now they're asking you to accept it on those terms. To make this story kind of like, I'm just taking a slight detour, but I think it'll make sense, is when I had executive producers here before, producers who would bid on projects on my behalf, I would say, you're grossly undercharging the work. This is how I feel about what I produce. This isn't about what you feel about yourself. Mm-hmm. And there's a big difference here. So when you underprice, you're saying that I am not confident about what it is that I do. And you're already misrepresenting me now. So let's not do that. Let's not quickly fold when the client asks for a lower price. Stand your ground and represent me and the team and our values and our belief system. So this is where it gets a little tricky. If an organization has been around for a couple of years, they have a pattern of working, I personally think they undercharge the price of the ticket, mostly because they bring speakers who don't create a lot of value for the attendees, who don't truly inspire them, don't give them actionable items to do, don't help them to shift their mindset or reframe a situation so that they can have a real breakthrough. So they get $100 for a ticket, $200, $300 for a ticket for a multi-day conference, and it's expensive to produce these things. And then they lean on the backs of the creative people who come to speak to be the draw. And if you think about this, how many would go to a conference for an empty room? Is it for the air conditioning? Is it for the snacks? Is it for the Krispy Kreme? Or is it for snacks? For what? I would hope it's the hardware is worthless without the software, and the people are the software, right? So if we start to change our mentality and say, Well, if we bring only 4 instead of 14 or 40 speakers, pick 4 speakers who you know have a track record of delivering great value and help people. That's one way to do it, because it's just math at that point, right? It's economics. They're flying in too many people, and it's all like this smorgasbord, like shotgun, let's go for it all.
Yeah.
Somebody here will attract somebody, and for that reason, let's all come to this thing. And it's weird, and to put this into context, like I'm going to be in Poland, Warsaw, doing a 3-hour workshop on pricing. Not pricing, I'm sorry, sales. I think it's about $300 for 3 hours. That's it. There's no other speaker. There's nothing fancy about it. I'm going to teach you how to sell. And event organizers are doing this with 25 speakers for $300 over 2.5 days.
Right.
Something is out of alignment for me. So I think if design conferences learn from other professional conference organizers, got really great speakers, big audience, and then onboard giant sponsors, because the sponsors can pay for it. It doesn't have to be in the backs of the people who attend. The things might change. But until then, I think we're going to be stuck in this place.
It's like an industrial
Let's
cultural
organize a
mindset.
conference.
Yeah.
I was just going to say,
Let's
somebody
prove it.
needs to actually put on a conference and
Yeah.
show the model.
And find out what the bummer is about it.
Yeah.
Why is it so hard?
Well, I think that there's a cultural mindset thing. You reference politics and business, Dreamforce can afford to pay their
Yes.
speakers, $50,000 a pop because 250,000 people are showing up for Dreamforce. They're all ponying up like at least a couple of grand, if not 10 grand. But that's because everyone, the attendees, the organizers, sales force who's behind it, everyone, they're acknowledging our marketplace generates huge value.
Yeah.
The politicians, well, we know that politics is not about governing. I'm not going to get political, but really politics and governments are about the flow of commerce. It's the ultimate money-making operation. So the potential for profit, the potential for revenues that happen as a result of things that politicians do or that you hear from them, it's just culturally acknowledged. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. People just say, well, of course there'd be a lot of money at play there. These people are talking about weighty topics that have huge economic impact. I think that people, evidence to the contrary, think that creativity is not worth something significant. Even though right now one of the biggest commodities markets that exists is in fine art. Even though right now the design work that's going into apparel, product design, the creation of value through brand identity, that drives huge sums of money. Yet the creative culture behind that, it's like the culture manifests each of our individual imposters. It's like the creative industry has imposter syndrome. And doesn't.
I think it's true.
Yeah.
I think Melinda's laughing,
Oh,
but I'm
yeah.
like,
No, it's true. I'm laughing because of how true it is. But the industry itself, yeah. I'm letting that sink in for a minute.
And evidence to the contrary. In fact, creativity drives some of the most profitable operations that are happening.
Duh.
all
hate
right.
to be the big brain in the room, but look at a movie. Holy moly. We worked with some video game products, some brands, that in the first 3 weeks of the release of the game made $1 billion. Whether you're coding, whether you're sitting in a room doing 3D work, whether you're on the marketing end, every single thing of that, at some one point or another, touches on a creative.
And contributed to that massive revenue. So we're involved in things that are driving huge tidal forces of money.
Yeah.
And I think it's up to our, how does a culture shift? Well, Gandhi would say by one individual and 2 individuals and 5 individuals and 100 individuals making the decision that something had value. So we have to all decide that this has value. We have to all lean into that idea that a $16,000 logo isn't a crime, it's a victory. You know,
Here's a comment coming from somebody who's watching this live stream right now. So we're going to interact with them live. So Alex Stratus writes, so basically everyone should raise their budgets for education. Remember, the poor students can't afford high prices of learning. Now this I want to speak to. So this person is basically saying, so if you raise the rates, it is on the backs of the students and it seems not right for them. But I'm going to add one more argument to this before I respond to it and just give everybody here a chance to think about it, which is when I put it out there in the universe that I'm going to get paid $20,000 to speak, fans of ours are saying to me, Chris, that's against your mission. You are now making it the domain of people who have a lot of money. And there's a lot of poor people out there who need what it is that you do. So it's almost like this weird thank you slap. Like, thank you for giving us
what do they call it, a clap back?
I don't even know yet. Like, it's like, thank you for all the free stuff you do. Please don't ever make any money. And to me, that's not true fandom. Don't you want to see me succeed? Don't you want us to do this and scale our operation and produce more stuff? So this person is pretty much saying the exact same thing, which is, what about the students? Here's my pushback. Do you sit around and ask yourself, what is the value of the education that I'm getting, that you so readily sign over your life to be indebted to schools and universities, and you don't even bat an eyelash? That Cal Arts education, those private art schools that you're going to get into, cost a lot of money, to the tune not of $50,000, because we're talking about, I think, $25,000 a semester now.
Yes.
So that's just tuition alone. Forget about living costs, supplies, and everything else you need just to get through 4 years of school. We don't ever question that. We don't question the organizers who onboard sponsors who sell things for a little bit on the low side. We question the speakers who want to get paid a fair rate. We were talking about this earlier, about how all creatives would rally to the idea of getting paid more, being valued for our time, to have creative freedom and autonomy. But the minute somebody steps up and says, I'd like to be valued more, to be paid for my time, to have autonomy, we're like, you suck. You're a bad human being. It's this weird dichotomy that I see a lot. Like, we like the idea except for when somebody embodies the idea, which is really weird.
Well, and I think that pushback doesn't have nuance, right? That comment, like, you know, but you're going against your mission. Now, Chris's mission is to, and I'm going to get the phrasing wrong, but is to provide valuable knowledge to 1 billion people, is what his big hairy goal is. So he's got this hashtag. You know, if you've gotten value from Chris, you do the hashtag, you know, 1 billion minus one.
Yes.
You're one of the people, right? Cool. But look, does Cal Arts give away any of their knowledge online for free? Now, this is changing, right? Big educational institutions are kind of twigging to this. So there are schools like MIT, like you can do the whole curriculum for free online. You can access it, right? But Cal Arts isn't doing that right now, and a lot of other private arts or creative schools aren't doing that. There's no resource to get access to those assets that you have to pay $200,000 for 4 years of. Yet the Future, you give away all the best, most valuable knowledge you have. You give it away. You just got to watch the YouTube. You just got to check in. There's all those materials there, and there's tiers of it available, right? But for you, you know, to get in a room full of people who are maybe decision makers and stakeholders, people who can really advance your mission of 1 billion people, you know, it's worth, Chris Do should be paid $20,000 to address a room full of agency executives and creative leadership people. Like, if you're speaking at Adobe Max, I would expect that's not a room full of students. You know, so the answer to that has to be nuanced. You know, I have a pretty much, if the school invites me, I'll go show up for free. Like if Cal, and I go talk at Cal Arts, I still like go talk, if the school invites me, I will give to students for free. That's an easier decision for me to make, but if I'm talking to professionals, I'm not living off the back of students at that point. I'm giving value to people who professionally practice their skills. There should,
Yeah. I'm very flexible with schools, but I also still think there's a problem there. Is that you're like, okay, these are students, these are teachers, this is noble, and I do believe it's noble. And then you go see them dump whatever on the wing of a building that somebody may or may not use, $20 million. And so, so to me, it's the currency of respect is what you get paid. And so I have an issue with respect. It's one of my shortcomings, right? It's like if I don't feel I'm respected, I get bent out of shape. I have an emotional response that's not always logical. And so I still I'm very flexible, but if we as the teachers show up every day to say we'll give it away for free, the school redirects their resources to something else, something sometimes less important. And that's problematic. There's a person here who's going to address this question right now, and this comes up all the time. So Lindsay Garber is asking, so how much is he getting paid to do this for Chris Doe? Addressing you, Bob. And Lindsay has a clarification. Is he doing this for free for this podcast? Would you like to address?
I'm doing this for free, but I'm doing this for free because I have self-selected as part of a community, the Future Pro community, which has, if you will, a covenant among each other to share knowledge with each other, And I have derived thousands of dollars of valuable knowledge out of interacting with these other professionals in this community. Now, if I were not part of the Future and I just got this rando invitation from Chris Doe to come show up, and if that happened with any other thing, I would think about, I should be paid for that probably. But in this case, it's a little different, and it's because I'm part of this community. So I've elected to share my value here because it gets reciprocated,
Well, it's getting a little confused because what we're doing here is having a conversation.
Yes.
There is not a room full of people who've paid $300 a piece
Yep.
and who have come here to watch. We're on a poster. The four
Right.
of us are on a poster on the Microsoft thing, and it's come on in and hear these people. And people, it's like a concert.
Yes.
Only we're talking about design. Right now, the conversation we're having is a conversation.
Yes.
And happy to share. Lindsay, please, come on, join us. But there's a difference there. It goes back to what Bob said about it being a nuanced thing. And, you just don't throw a blanket over everything.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to frame the conversation within the lanes, which is the difference between a professional conference with paid attendees. It's a concert. Buy your ticket, get your show.
Yeah. So I'm glad you said that
Pay the band.
because I was going to say it. To the average person watching this, they can't seem to discern the difference. That media is media, time is time, speaking is speaking. Just for context here, Bob's in town. Bob's like, let me stop by the studio. Maybe we can make some content together.
Yeah.
And so this is of mutual interest to both of us, and we would be having this conversation with or without the microphones.
Absolutely.
And I don't charge you to have lunch with me. I don't charge you to sit and talk to me in this context because we're friends, and we're friends through our community, a shared mission, those kinds of things, mutual respect. And so people are confused. Ask yourself, Lindsay, and everybody else that's watching this right now, how much did you pay to watch this video? If you paid us a lot of money, I'd be happy to pay Bob part of that. No problem. You see, so we're broadcasting for free to you at a cost to us. This is a negative money-making operation right now because this is not behind YouTube Red or anything, right? We're not saying, hey, this video is sponsored by X, Y, and Z. There's no sponsorship. We're having a conversation. And I do the same. And I reciprocate both ways. When I'm invited to jump on a show or just walk in and talk, I have no problems. What we're talking about on these conferences is heavy amounts of preparation.
Oh, yeah.
The writing of a talk that may or may not be tailored for this audience. The travel time to and from. We're talking about 3 days of your life that you can't get back. We're talking about ticketed events that have been promoted. You're a headliner or you're a part of the marquee, and they're selling your likeness, your reputation, your information, all that kind of stuff as a draw to a space. And it is run, for the most part, for profit. What people don't ever wonder is how much the event organizers are making relative to the fees that they're paying the speakers. Nobody ever talks about that. So if you like,
promise you,
yeah,
they're making money.
of course they are.
You know,
They have to sustain themselves too. How did they do this next year?
it's admirable.
Yes.
The amount of altruistic content that you guys all generate and drop out there, you know, but it's completely different than an event, a ticketed event.
And conferences are the premier property for publishing companies. Magazines exist. Some websites exist. Magazines.
Yes.
It's like records, right? You know, publishing platforms exist in order to create marketing for you to come attend their conferences. That drives profit in that industry. It's why you see big conferences getting bought and sold for billions of dollars. LDI, a conference that we...
It's for lighting people.
Right.
It's just a whole bunch of lights and smoke machines in a convention center.
Sounds exciting.
It's a blast, actually. They were just purchased.
Millions and millions and millions
Yeah.
of dollars.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations, guys. Good work.
Here's another good question. Another challenge. We're getting all the challenging questions
Yay,
right now.
bring it. This
Coming.
is the juicy
So it's a
part.
topic that people can argue about, which is
Yeah.
what I like, and it's polarizing for some. So Robert Loyal is saying, I get upset with the idea that people want to pay for common sense. Full stop. Not that it should be free, but people will pay $20,000 for a kick in the butt towards the right direction. So he has a problem with common sense. Let's talk about that. And I hear this a lot. Like, because I'm a public figure, I get criticized a lot, especially from a very certain island in the world that constantly critiques me all the time. Like, this guy is just saying common sense BS.
You're a
and
snake oil
snake oil
salesman.
salesman. They just go on and on and on about it. Okay, so let's open that up. Common sense. So you'll pay for
sense.
uncommon sense?
You know what? I am somebody who was born with no common sense. So every time I get it, it's super valuable. Congratulations that you already know this. There's a whole pile of us who have no idea.
Yeah.
So to me, it's another thing I can't put a value on. Ding.
I can. And I'll tell you how uncommon common sense is. Mm-hmm. It's a misnomer, I think.
I'm
right?
glad you're saying
Yeah,
that's because
it really
I was
is.
going to go there.
And I'm gonna even put a value on it.
Yeah.
Many years ago, when I started working with my business coach, he asked me to detail our pitch process for all new business, and I was rather confident. I think we're 6 or 7 years into the business, and I was telling him almost like this is my brag sheet, my moment to shine in front of my business coach. After he listened to it, his face was just like blank. I'm like, good, bad, good, bad. What happened here? And he told me, this is terrible. He didn't say it in these words. He was much more in a coach kind of tone. But he said, this is terrible. Why don't you ask the clients what they want? All of what you've constructed in this whole dialogue is just you poking around and dancing. Just ask them, what is it that you want me to make? What makes you happy? What inspired you? Now, that seems like a pretty bit of common sense. If you want to know what somebody's thinking, just ask them. But I thought in the game of business, in the game of sales, if you ask, you sound like an idiot. You sound like a neophyte, that you have no magic, you have no reveal, you're not bringing anything special to the table. And I started to apply this very common sense advice that he gave me, which took him all of 3 minutes to tell me. I applied it. It required a little tweaking. Applied it again. And that year, we went from $2.1 million to $3.9 million. Mm-hmm. So that piece of common sense was worth, anecdotally, $2 million. So for all those people who don't want to pay for common sense, no problem. You were blessed. You were divined by greater intelligence. This is incredible. You should be the speaker. You should go do this. But I think what people really push back, what they're really saying is, that sounds simple. I don't want it. I don't want to do it. I don't value it. See you later. F you.
Well, and this is something that I've heard a great deal from Seth Godin, which is like, who is it for? You know, if this is not for you, if you don't need the common sense, God bless you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's what you're saying. Bud.
Great, you know.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
But I find that this is a question of supply and demand, which defines marketplaces. And I keep finding, look, personally, I should just speak to my own experience and stop projecting on other people because I don't know. But I know that, like, I've had a similar experience to you with your business coach. We had a business coach. We worked with her for about 5 years. She was hugely instrumental. And all of the most valuable things that she gave us were, she said them and we went, oh God, duh. They were massive, beautifully simple, common sense things. They had enormous impact on our bottom line. Color me dumb. I didn't have the common sense.
Common sense is another misnomer, because if it was common, we'd all know it.
Yeah, right?
So it's not common. It's absolutely uncommon. And as far as your pitch correction, you ever walk into a car dealership?
Of course.
First thing they say to you is, how can I help you today? And that particular little scenario didn't pop into my head until you said what you said. And I'm just like, not common, because I've pitched 10,000 things and never really thought about, hey, how can I help you today?
Right.
You know, it's, common sense.
How can I be of
another one we should
service?
chuck out.
Yeah.
Yeah, not so common.
Not so common. That's a good speech. Not so common.
I just think about all of our conversations where you say something so simple and I'm like, oh, I totally should have known that. And how that changes everything. It was just a different perspective that I needed, and to see something from a different angle.
You know, but you shouldn't have known it, because this is the thing, and people around the pro community have heard me talking about Sonder before, this idea that everybody's experience in life is through their own lens of their own complex conditions and experiences and learning. And it's I think it's hubris to say, well, you should have known that. That sounds like common sense. No, everybody's got different experiences, different upbringings, different educations, different dreams and ideals and principles, and what is common for you is not necessarily common at all for many, if not most, of everybody else. So and thus I've found, and I keep this is a North Star for me. Like, I boil my messages down often to, like, I'm like, okay, back it off and get to the core thing, which is often a simple statement or a simple question, but it's enormously powerful. Like when our business coach said, okay, I'm going to tell you the secret to good marketing, okay? And it was about niching down, and she said, you need to go find who your product is for. You need to find out where those people gather. We'll call it the watering holes. You need to go to those watering holes and make yourself visible. And I was like, who is it for? I can actually document that and define that. I wasn't thinking that way because I'm a creator. I didn't graduate from college. I got into this industry by accident, and then I lived by wit and grit. So I lacked a lot of a lot of what you would call common sense.
It's just a different technique. It's a skill. It's not common sense. Yeah. You're learning another skill. Awesome at Illustrator. Sit there day after day illustrating. No one ever takes it. Maybe it's because you're missing another skill. It's not that you're not doing what you're supposed to do. You just haven't attained the skill of how to present yourself, where to go to get your work. Because the biggest question I get is, how do I get into the industry? And I'm always like this. You go get in it. And there's, all you got to do is lighting companies. The page fills. Get on the phone and get to it. But common sense, it's uncommon.
Yeah.
It sounds like something your dad would say to you too. Sorry, I'm not picking on you, dude, but that's one of these things. That's just common sense. Go to your room. Sorry.
Okay. So I think the other thing that you wanted to talk about, Bob, was about education and the value of education. You both are self-educated to a degree. Should we talk about that? Is that another topic you feel like that's is it burning? Or Butch, you can bring up something.
I had an unusual journey through education. I wish I would have completed it. Things that I thought at the time were stupid and below me, and this is idiot. I was just so wrong. Should have stayed. Should have taken geology in New York State. Should have learned Arabic. I mean, there's a million things, and that's that. It opens up the world. I think, and it doesn't matter if it's traditional education, education you gain through the course of your life. It's cool, learn. It's just learning, and it comes back to what you guys were talking about speaking. It's an educational moment.
Well, and I think that the model of education in Western civilization right now was built to create order takers, right? So here's the miracle that's happened that's now the truth. You can find out anything about anything. The internet provides it. All the resources are available to you at any time. I too wish I had finished. I dropped out of college in my third year to go out on tour because I'm like, oh, I might never get that chance again, which is a ridiculous notion. But I did, and then I just got done with the tour and moved to New York City and then got after it. I just went about it. And I had always said, well, I'll go back and finish the degree. Do I think that formalized education is necessary for you to do anything you want to do? I don't know. If you want to be a dentist, I think you have to do that. If you want to be a creative, if there's a school that has a particular faculty member that you find to be an incredible influence, there's value in it. There's certainly value in, for instance, in the world of live performance. If you want to go get a graduate degree from the Yale School of Theater, that's a ticket to something. You're buying into a community at that point of people who are going to help you up the ladder, and it's a marquee certification of something. You had what it took to get into Yale. You spent what it took to stay at Yale. You have a Yale degree. It means something, and that's why if you want to go work on Broadway, you kind of have to have a Yale degree. Oddly enough, Butch and I have done massive shows for big broadcast networks or big recording artists, but neither one of us
can read. Yeah. This is just while we were sitting here, this popped into my head. So you've got this education you go through, and it's like 15, 18 years, right? I bet you it's just dawned on me, I burned out. I had been in such a high pressure learning thing for so many years and from such a young age that when I did get the opportunity to bail and go out on a tour, hand up, I was in. And I never went back. But it's just like, oh yeah, it's like that thing is a whole career before you get to your career.
And I think the notion of what a career is changing profoundly now.
Yeah.
I think that, our parents would talk about going to school, you learn a vocation, you learn a profession, and then you do that your whole life. I was talking to my 16-year-old son about this, and he's like, well, Daddy, I reckon that I figure I'll probably have like 2 or 3 careers before I'm 30. He's already thinking as a multidisciplinary person. He's already looking ahead and seeing the pace of change, automation, machine learning, the technological edge, which is rocketing forward at accelerating speed. There are going to be professions that are no longer professions because they'll get automated one way or another, or they'll change at a fundamental level. I think the most important thing that we can teach people now is how to learn. Because I think we're in a state as human beings of needing to constantly learn, right? And to be able to understand how to learn, how to quickly assimilate a topic, how to develop an expertise that's at least 5 minutes ahead of the people, you know, as you were discussing this, you know, the other day, you know, it's, and that's most of my job now is learning, you know, and I think that that's what the future is about. And it's also kind of some of the things that we're trying to build is this, you know, it's an acknowledgement that we're living in a different time where education is no longer a phase of your life and then you're done and then you do. Now there needs to be constant learning so that you can do, then you learn some more, you do something different, you learn some more, you do something different, and that progression, I figure for me, is going to happen until I stop.
I want to ask you a follow-up question about what does it mean how to learn? Because one might think, well, isn't learning done in school under structured programs? But before I do that, I want to pull Melinda into the conversation. I saw a comment like, is Melinda going to say something?
She's been saying things.
Well, I just want to pull Melinda in. So it's kind of interesting. The two you sit on that side of the table both dropped out of college or didn't take it all the way through. The two of us have our degrees. So I want to turn to Melinda and ask her a question and say, you graduated. How well do you think the education you got from school prepared you to do what it is that you're doing now?
It prepared me for what I did previously, which was get a design job. That's what it grew me to do. It grew me specifically to learn how to design, put together a portfolio, go get a job. And I did that. There were some places in my education that did teach me how to learn and how to think. And I still reference back to those times and the professors that had that impact on me. And that was huge. That was really huge. Though those specific moments, they still impact me and influence me now and what I'm doing, no matter what that is, whether it's teaching, whether it's strategy, design, doesn't matter. But it was not a lot. I would say 1 or 2 professors that I even had. So, but the majority of the education prepared me just to get the next step, which was get the job.
And then I have to ask you this question because I'm reading this book, The Surprising Thing About How We Learn, about how when we recall a memory, we change the memory. It's kind of an interesting influence, right? So I'm not sure which bias this is. Maybe it's confirmation bias, maybe it's sunk loss bias, but you don't want to feel like you're an idiot that you spent 4 years going to school and you got nothing. So we may or may not go back in time and say, yes, I got something really good out of that. So I don't want to debate that. What I want to do is just ask you, the 1 or 2 instructors that you really got something that's great that you're going to carry with the rest of your life, was that the best place to do it in the structure that it was, given the cost and all that stuff? So I'm not debating whether or not it was valuable. It is valuable. The question is, was that the best place to do it?
I don't know how I would compare because I don't know any different. That's all I knew.
You do?
Well, I do.
What
I
year
do
did you
now.
graduate?
What year did I graduate? 2008?
2008. So it's been 10 plus years, 12 plus years,
12,
right? 12
yeah.
years. So in the 12 years, you've had to learn a bunch of new things.
Yeah.
Assuming you did not go back into college or university,
Right.
the rest, you do have some point of comparison. You've learned it on the job. You've learned it through mentors. You've learned it through coaching. You've learned it through
Online.
watching videos and attending workshops and all. You've learned other ways besides in a structured program at a school.
I guess what I'm saying is that at that time, that's all I knew. So are you asking me compare it now with all of
Yeah.
knowledge? With all of the resources that I have at my fingertips
Yes.
now? No.
Yes.
No.
Expand on that, please.
Well, I see, because at that time, all I was given, that's all I knew, right? So I only could make that decision given what I know at the time. But there wasn't platforms online. There wasn't as much content online to learn from or free stuff or even people. I would say that the people that I knew of in the industry, I only knew them because of their work and maybe a few books here and there. So I wouldn't even know how to find a mentor or any of that. Now I see, oh my gosh, all of the free content that's online, all the access to the people who are the content creators or writing books or mentors. There's so much more accessibility to that too. So now I can't remember the original question that got me on this. What was your question?
The question was that the best way to learn it? knowing what you know now.
But that wasn't accessible to me at that time. If it was, no, it was not the best.
I'm not asking you to travel back in time and change your past. I'm saying, given the perspective that you have today, what would you recommend? For example, if you were to have a child and the child's like, Mom, I want to learn this. How would you advise them to learn this? Because there's a whole generation of people who are coming up who are going to watch this video and say, oh, there's an alternative. What does that look like? That's what I'm trying to get to.
Gotcha.
This is not about correcting mistakes of the past.
You had mentioned one time about, like, here's how to have an alternate education, and it was to take the money that you would have spent going to college and then approaching someone that you admire, that you want to follow in their footsteps, and offer them that amount of money and say, hey, can I apprentice you? Can I shadow you?
I'm just kidding.
But I have you as my mentor, and this has been extremely valuable to me. I mean, not only in how it changed my business, but how I think and how I learn and how I go forward in life. So you had mentioned that on a video about what if you were to take all that money that you would spend on college and then go and approach a mentor and apprentice and shadow them for 3 months or whatever, 16 weeks, whatever it was, that if you want to stay within those confines, which you don't have to. I heard that and I'm like, oh, I wish I would have done that. That something to that effect. Like, what if you took 4, 5, 6 of your mentors that you just idolize and took all of that and went to them and apprenticed under them?
Yeah. And thus far, how much have you paid me?
We'll talk about that later.
No, I mean, seriously, how much have you paid me? Tell the camera.
0.
0 is what she's paid me. So I want you to think about this for a couple different points, because somebody's going to be sitting there thinking, well, the way that we're able to go to school is you get a student loan, and they don't give student loans for self-education. We should change that.
Yeah.
We should definitely change that.
Yeah.
Give people, it's like we talk about healthcare, like how you should give a rebate so then you could spend your money and buy whatever healthcare, at least as a concept, right? Seemed pretty cool. And they're right. Realistically, you couldn't take that money that you don't have to spend on a mentor that you can't pay for. Now, I want to make this very actionable for everybody that's watching this, is if you find somebody you really look up to replicate the model in which Melinda was able to get free education, which is she did something remarkable, something worth talking about. And I've shared the story before, but I'm going to give it to you here again. She participated in a community that we were controlling, and instead of doing what everybody else did, she took it to the level times 10, and that caught my eye. So if there's somebody out there that you want to have as a mentor, don't pester them. Don't ask them a lot of questions, because it's not really making you stand out from the rest. Just do something remarkable. Either spend the time and do the research and come up with a solution, or whatever challenges they have, whatever opportunities there are, do something where you stand so far above everybody else. What Errol Garrison says, stand out 1/8 of an inch.
You write the 1/8 of an inch on the resume, which I love.
That's it. Stand out 1/8 of an inch, and she stood out 1/8 of an inch, which prompted me to actually reach out to her. So it was the ultimate Jedi mind trick that she was pulling on me. She had such a good hook that I was like, this person's intriguing. Who is this person, and why are they doing this?
And other people have modeled that too, like Mo.
Yes.
In the pro group, like
Yes.
David.
Yes.
There are people
You're
who this is a place I could bring value, and they invest all in, and they go all in, and they make themselves visible in the community, and now they've made themselves accessible to you.
I would also say that, Bob, you have done the same. Because you are throwing value, knowledge bombs, help everywhere I look. Every comment somebody posts, every time I look, I'm like, oh, Bob's got that. Bob's handled that. He's answered that question. He's helped that person. So I would say you would also be in that group as well.
Thank you.
You're absolutely right, Bob. And I knew that was true. It didn't register in my brain.
Common sense.
Valuable. You're right. David is a prime example.
Yeah.
Now that you bring this up, because David joins the group. He's not in the group for more than a few weeks or months. He reaches out to me. He's like, I think I can help you with your Instagram. And of course I'm like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, what are you going to show me?
Yeah, and then he's like, well, I've been able to grow 2 accounts to 80 or 100,000 follows. Oh, you got some credentials. Okay, let me see. And then we get into conversation, and the next thing we know, we're impacting each other's lives, and it's pretty cool. So that is a free way to get help from somebody that you look up to, that you want to study under, and to get some advice. So it's an exchange of value, and it works out pretty good. So there you go. That's how you do it, internet.
Well, yeah, and look, schools are a valid way to go. They're
Yes,
a
they are.
model that's been around a long time. Does it still work? Sure, it still works. You know, is it the best value proposition for getting a really good education? Depends on what you're going to do, right? I think that there's a very, you know, there are very good value propositions that way. Are there alternatives? Absolutely. Now more than ever. You know, you can go out there, like I said, you can go access MIT's entire curriculum for free. Now, you can't walk away with a doctorate in physics, but you can get all that practical knowledge. You can go to Seth Godin's Akimbo workshops, and you can get a whole bunch of great education that you would otherwise have to go get an MBA to really get. You can go to IDOU, you know, where they're giving great design thinking, like stuff you would have had to pay to go to Stanford to get. And you know, you do, and yes, you do have to pay the, you know, $500, $300, $700. Unbelievable deal for what they're giving away there for the knowledge. My son Tristan, right now, he's told me, he's like, I'm not sure that I'm going to go to college right away. You know, because it seems like an awful lot of money, and it seems to me I should really know what I'm doing before I spend that money. Like, who gave you this common sense? Not me, you know, but he gets it. He's got this common sense because he's coming up in a generation that sees these values and these opportunities in different places to gain the knowledge that they need to do something that they want to do to make the change that they want to make.
Yeah.
I have a question really quick about, because you both had mentioned that you regret not finishing college. Was that because of during that time, like you wish you would have, can you explain more? I guess that's my question.
Why?
Like why did you not,
Good
why do you
question.
regret not finishing?
Well, for me, it was because I was super close. I had a year left, my undergrad, you know, and I was like, I'll do this tour, I'll go back and I'll do that, and I'll do that. And I didn't. And now those credits are such ancient history that I effectively don't have an undergrad education. Like if I went back and said, okay, now I want to finish it, and I went to a university, they would say, yeah, you got to start from zero, probably, you know.
So do you want to finish for the paper? Is that what it is? Sense of accomplishment?
Right, is that a sunk cost fallacy happening right there?
I don't know.
Well, kind of sounds like one. You know, I think maybe my bigger wish is that I had engaged in a more earnest fashion with the education that was offered to me while it was being offered, rather than screwing around and, you know, not paying attention because I wasn't interested. You know, I really wish I spoke a second language now. I regret that I didn't. I really wish that I'd gotten an incredibly good grip on math. I didn't. You know, because it wasn't interesting to me. Was I super interested in computer programming? Yeah, and I got an A. Was I interested in history? Yeah, engaged, I got an A.
So let me ask you this question. Nothing's stopping you today from learning a second language or getting really good at math.
Oh, yeah.
If it's really important to you, you would do it now.
And it is, and that's my move. Like one of the reasons I'm trying to move into teaching and coaching and speaking is to create time for myself. I've often told Colleen, my wife, that my ideal version of retirement is just collecting postgraduate degrees. You know, I want to just go get a master's in art history because, man, that would be dope AF to go just immerse in art history for 2 years. That would be the dream. You know, I love learning now. I didn't realize then the value of it. You know, but now I love learning new things. Like nothing makes me happier than when I learn a new thing now. So why do you regret it?
That I never cared about the piece of paper.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter to me at all. The experience of learning from professionals at that point, I can see now how that is valuable. I'm taking an online math course right now, and I had to start at kindergarten. But I want to learn it. I'd love to learn, but I mean, that's every day.
And you do a lot of that. You take a lot of courses.
Yes, tons. You know, I think Bob, it's art history, unbelievable. You just need to know it. History in general. If you're going to run a business, better be able to do some math. And just the experience. I was a punk. I had enough of those stupid, and I was off on my own, and that was immaturity. In the rear view mirror of my life, I picture myself, and although I had hair, which was dope, I would do that differently.
Okay, very good. I'm glad my mom talked me out of not dropping out of school.
Good job, Mom.
I had one semester left.
Good job.
I was just like, I'm done. I hate this. I'm out. She just finished that one semester and then do whatever you want. So that got me off the edge. Okay, so I have some comments here, and I think we do need to wrap up because it is getting a pretty long live stream here. So let's see here.
Actually,
And I was all worried on the way over here. I'm like, oh, are we going to have anything interesting to talk about?
You were getting worried? Oh, that's what that was.
Chris is, there's a standard here.
There certainly is. I'm just so out of my league.
Let's see here. Gosh, I missed it here. Somebody thanked us for answering their question. And a lot of people are saying they've learned more from YouTube and from online learning than they did in university, learning from videos just like this. So that was awesome. So Robert's back. Robert really wants to fight with us, I think, if I'm reading this right here.
And we want you to know, Robert, we love you, man. Okay? Let's do this.
So Robert's like, I'm paraphrasing because I've lost the comment in here. I'm going to try and find it because there he is. Robert's like, it bothers me. People say, I want to make more money. Then why don't you just make more money?
That's a great question. I'm going to do that. I'm going to make more money. Okay. And that's the funny thing. Like, look, we're all writing the story of our lives. I talked about Sonder earlier in this lens we all look for. We're all writing the story, and we're either writing a story of scarcity or we're writing a story of abundance. We're either writing a story of experience or a story of ignorance. Like, we're making all these decisions about ourselves and where we are in the world and what our potentials are. We really, really are authoring most of that because the deal is the world doesn't care, either positively or negatively. Like, the world is a big, giant picture, macro physical force, and us in it, we're the ones who are creating in our mind this narrative about where we're at. I could be making more money, but I'm not. I could know more, but I don't. Okay, what happens if you change that narrative? What if you say, what if you rewrite it to say, and then having realized that, I went out and learned, or having had that epiphany, I immediately doubled my prices and people paid. It's you don't realize how much you're writing your own rules of engagement for life. And, I'll tell you something for certain. If you write the rules to the game you're playing, you will win that game almost every time. But you have to realize that you have the ability to write those rules. In a business sense, if you're approaching a negotiation and if you speak first and you set the rules of engagement, you're probably going to go all the way. If you hang back and you let someone else set the rules of engagement, you're going to come out on the bottom of that negotiation. If you choose to write the framework for how you view yourself, you can change that from I suck to I'm okay. So I don't know if I'm answering Robert's question.
I'd love to jump in there. Robert is asking this question, and he's like, stop talking about making more money, just go make it. Okay. And I agree with Robert. And I think, I want to make that distinction that Butch made earlier. There's a little difference here. I'm in 100% agreement with Robert on this one, where if you quietly wish in a room, you could do this and be that and accomplish these things, but you take no action towards that. It's just empty wishes. And then that's just all it is. It's a wish. It's a hope.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. What we're doing here is, I think, worlds different. First of all, I think you're getting the money that you want. I'm getting the money that I want. What we're trying to do is to have transparency on the kinds of conversations and thinking that are happening at this level, so that people who are coming up who don't have access to this can start to learn like how we're looking at the world and the kind of internal decisions that we're making ourselves.
That's
right?
exactly right. Yeah.
I do get paid what I asked for, and I do get paid a lot more for different things. It's not that at all. And I think for too many years, creative people like us never spoke about this in a public forum. So the rest of us were left to wonder, like, am I doing it right? Am I charging too little? Am I charging too much? And we kind of have that echo chamber in our brain where it bounces around and it drives us mad. It's like the creative's best friend is self-doubt, and we live there next to self-loathing. So what Bob and I are doing right now is trying to have an open dialogue about something that he's thinking about, as am I, and we just reached out as two peers with mutual respect to kind of understand it. And you guys are just along for the ride. Like I said, After Hours is really about us having really open dialogue with each other, to being honest, and then to letting go of the facade. And we do something different. We just turn the cameras on, and that's it.
And as I listen to this whole thing, although the conversation has been on money, everything I do is not driven by money. You know, fortunately, people pay me to do what I do, and there are rules that go along with that. But that's, you know, it's not just that. It just happens to be a thing we're talking about. Power to you, Robert.
There we go. I like to end it on a positive note, and I'm going to read a few comments, and then I think we're going to wrap up here.
Right on.
So Lindsay Garber, who had that question before, says, thanks for answering. MD Glass Painter says, I have a degree, but I've learned so much more via YouTube University. Let's see what else here. Somebody's saying a raise, like saying hi from South Africa, loving the content. Simply Beth is saying, and reminding to everybody, have you liked the stream yet? If you're watching this, that is, thank you for reminding all of us.
Do consider
for me to say
subscribing
that.
or hitting the like button below.
And the bell.
And the bell.
Yeah.
You want to know when we're
Wow.
posting more of this.
Yes, turn on and push notifications and do all that kind of stuff. So guys, that's it. And that's it for this episode of After Hours. Bob and Butch, thank you for joining me. Melinda, always pleasure. We recorded an episode earlier today that we'll be editing and releasing. We got another live stream tomorrow and probably a whiteboard session. I know you guys want it. It's ready. And hopefully you guys will tune in for that. Until next time, see you guys later. Be well.